this demonstration is showing you some of the QuadJoy features and how you can configure them to meet your special applications. So we're starting out here on the, this is the QuadJoy Configuration program. This version of this program is 1.8.7, and it's fairly new, so you may not see this yet, but it's up and coming. So here it shows the unit serial number, and so you can see I'm pointing here at the unit serial number, and then below it shows 1.8.8. That's the QuadJoy firmware level, and BT9 is the Bluetooth radio firmware level. So currently this is pointing at the USB target, and it's in mouse mode. And right now the LED, if you look at these LEDs in the picture here, you watch them. I've got it set at 0, and as soon as I hit apply, you'll notice how much brighter they get. You can actually control the intensity of these LEDs. So the other things that apply on this front screen is if there's some features. Now currently this is activated for the core functionality. If your unit has got core functionality in here, then it should work. If it may have a 30-day trial, and it'll tell you how many days are left. This one also happens because of the purple base. It belongs to a dealer of ours, Get Well Network, and all of their products go into hospitals. So this particular one that I'm showing is actually not available for home use. There's also the way of resetting all the configurations here all to the factory default, and you can import settings and export settings. So after you've got something, if you're changing how your mouse is configured, before you change it, you probably want to export it and give it a name so that you could bring it back in again and get it to work. On the stick tab, the first thing we're going to talk about are the startup features. So they're all these things labeled auto reset time. What that means is, and if the person uses it, for example, for their personal computer, as a mouse to their personal computer, in this case, after 3 minutes, it will revert back to what the auto reset target is, which is also how it shows up, when you first go through reset or turn it on. So this is going to go to the USB connector that's up here, okay? And in the auto reset mode will be mouse 1. Now I'll explain mouse 1 and mouse 2, in a minute. But one of the important features is the full range of motion. Right now, if you watch my cursor, and my cursor is only on this screen, okay? So you have to push the stick fairly far to make the cursor move. If I would change the full range of motion down to, I'm going to just change it down to 22 and hit apply. Okay. Now when I move the stick, notice how much quicker the cursor is moving quickly. Well, if the person using the mouse would happen to be broken, real high, C2, and they couldn't move their head, you could change that down to the range of motion to accommodate them. I'm going to change it back to 75 because it's easier to do the demo. The next thing I want to show you is the auto zeroing function. So there's two things: the deadband, the stick deadband, and so I'm going to just show you here. If the deadband is within 12 counts, which is actually a pretty small circle here, then this auto zero time is active. If the stick is outside, if the stick is moved way out here, so it's fairly far out, then it won't auto zero. So what this means is this is 0.5. Every half a second, if the stick is close to 0 but not perfect, it makes it 1 count closer to a perfect 0. This is all intended so that the cursor doesn't drift. Now, one of the things that can happen to this system is some people like to keep their lips on the stick all the time, and they're always holding it just a little bit off of 0. Well, what will happen is it will slowly compensate to that to make it where you're holding it to be 0. Of course, when you let go of the stick, the cursor's drifting, so you want to be sure you don't have that issue. So the next thing is the edge gestures. So these are the edge gesture time and the edge gesture threshold. So what happens is, if I would push this stick to the top, and I'm going to just do it with my finger here, you'll notice first the center light turns green. It turns green once it crosses the edge gesture threshold. Okay, so you see where that is, where the orange button, that's roughly 80%. And if I hold it up there for 2 seconds, that green light will turn white like it just did when I let go. Watch down here. Oh, I switched it to the mode it was in. I'm going to switch it to the side, so it's green. I'll wait 2 seconds, it turned white, I let go. This then switched to Bluetooth, and it should stop flashing because the phone is here and it's been prepared. So the next thing I want to talk about is extended gestures, and you'll see, because a gesture is any action that the user can do. Okay, so there's stick gestures, there's edge gestures, extended gestures, external gestures, and there's puff and sip gestures. So this next one we're talking about is extended gesture. So and what that is here it talks about I can set the extended gestures to, with this drop down, I can set it to 0. And then if I would push the stick to the side and sip, it still worked. Oh, I didn't hit apply, that's why. Okay, so after I hit apply, it should not work. So let me push it to the edge. See now, the edge gesture still works. So there it goes. It's not going to, oh yeah. Okay, the edge gesture still works, but the extended gesture does not. So for example, if I pushed it down, zipped, nothing happens. So I'm going to turn and some people don't like the extended gestures. Depends how they're using their mouse. This gives them the ability to turn this off, and that's what that represents. So I'm going to turn it back on again. And I have to hit apply. Nothing happens until you hit apply, and then the light, it dims out. So the other things associated with that extended, or the external extended gesture, is once it's in an extended gesture, it can hold there for a period of time. So we'll leave it at 8/10, and I'll show you an extended gesture. Let me see if I'm not sure what's programmed right now, but let me try. Okay, so you notice how long that light stayed blue. I lifted it up and I sipped, the lights turned blue. If I go to the left, I believe it goes green. No, it's blue green. If I go to the right, it's green. If I go to the bottom, it's red. Every one of those allows you to program some action to that, okay? And but if I turn this extended gesture reset time, I'm going to just turn it up to 2 point some seconds there. I'm going to hit apply, and now I'm going to do. You'll notice that the lights stay on a lot longer, and the purpose of that. Well, let's go over and look at what something's programmed to the extended gesture. So if you touch on the Actions tab, and we go down here, so anyhow, right up here, north edge, that's an edge gesture. South, east edge, nothing's programmed to it. South, stick 0 in pressure. West edge, mouse 1. Okay, and then these, the G's 1 through 12, are air gestures, and I'll show you them in a minute. And then the other gestures down here, the blue. Those are external gestures. Them are for buttons that you can plug in. And so, for example, I have a button plugged into the blue. So Even though I'm on a bit of a diversion here, I could show you that that we could, well, once again, let's change the target. Let's change the target to Bluetooth 1. And so right now right now it is aiming at Bluetooth 1. I'm going to use an edge gesture with a happens to be programmed to take it back to USB. So you'll see it should switch back to USB. And you see my blue button here. So when I push my blue button, you'll notice that it switches over to the Bluetooth because I programmed it to do that. So let me continue here on. So we've explained the stick deadband, full range motion, extended gesture, the number of setups, the holding time, the auto zero, all click deadband. Click deadband is used when you're, the difference between a click and a swipe. If you do a click, and especially like on your Android phone, if you jitter a little bit, it thinks it's a swipe. So what we did is we made it that when you started to apply pressure to click, it actually puts a temporary deadband on the movement of the stick, so that your cursor is not as likely to move when you're doing a left or right click, which makes it easier to do a click versus a swipe. Makes a swipe a little harder, but in some cases a swipe is way too easy. So we'll now go to the puff and sip screen, and here's where you see gestures per mode. This is one of the more important concepts. Okay, so right now I've got it set as 4 gestures per mode. So if it was set at 2 gestures per mode, it would, what that means is it would simply be a puff and sip mouse. Okay, and so actually I can change it, and I'll show you what I mean. So I'm going to hit apply, and the cool thing about this screen is you can see the pressure. So if I sip real lightly, notice that it did turn blue, but it didn't really do anything. Here's red. I can't get anything but a red. Okay, and if I puff, you see the red up in this corner, and you also see the red on your screen in that corner. So even when you see it blue and it goes to red, now you see also up on top, if you look up here, you'll see it's going to tell you the mouse 1 gesture, and then it says mouse right button. That's the action tied to that gesture. If I sip, you're going to see mouse left button. So it says mouse 1 G2, mouse left button. And so once again, I could go over the actions. I could show you where that's set. If you look here, mouse 1 G1, mouse right button, mouse 1 G2, mouse left button, mouse 1 G3, and all the odds are so let's see, all the odds are the puffs, and all the evens are the sips. So for that G3 to actually function, I have to set this to 4 gestures per mode, because it can basically be either 2, 4, 8, or 12. So now if I puff slowly, you'll notice that I'm first going to make it turn blue, and then I'll puff a little harder and make it turn green. Oh, hang on. You know, the old didn't push the apply button, sorry. Now you notice that the green, when this light did go green, and I let go, it stays on for a period of time. That is that's the scroll reset time. So right here is the scroll reset time. If I set that up to, let's just set it up to a couple of seconds here. 2.4 seconds. Don't forget to hit apply. I'll do the puff. Okay, now watch how long it stays on. I think you can see that, right? Okay. So, and now I'll demonstrate scrolling up and down. Up. The more I pressure, the faster it flashes. Down. And so if you enjoyed reading a book and you wanted to scroll through your, through the pages, you could set your scroll time to take a long time to reset, and just, every little bit as you're reading, just move your screen up a little bit. Now, there's also a special function, and I won't demo it, but it's an action that you can apply to a gesture. I had some people that were doing CAD drawings, and they wanted to be able to not only scroll up and down, but scroll left and right and zoom in and out. So we made another gesture, or another action, that as you activated the gesture, it would switch between the three scrolling types. So the other thing is all of these thresholds up here, the puff high, puff low, the deadband, the puff sip low and sip high. If for some reason you don't like what pressure it takes to function your mouse, you can just simply reach in here and tick on these and change them. You would have to hit apply, and when you do, you'll notice that the line changed. Now I have to cross that line before an action will occur. Okay, you notice that the light did not, it turned blue when I crossed the first line, and it turned green when I crossed the second line. If I puff quickly, so that the time between crossing those two lines is shorter, it will turn red. Okay. So the other functions down here in the bottom, the time in between crossing that determines the difference between a slow and a fast is by the cross rate. The incomplete time is sort of like, the old-fashioned dialing a phone. You could dial a number, and then it gave you so much time, so many seconds before you'd have to dial another number, or you'd get the, please hang up, try your call again. So it's called an incomplete time. Reset time we leave real short. The scroll time, I just showed you that. The scroll rate, you can change the rate on how fast it's scrolling. The analog rate's not been done. The help gesture time is specifically for in-hospital use, and I could show you that. If I set that up to a second or so here, and then I did a puff, a short puff, then my right clicks. But if I do a long puff, you notice that all four corners turn red, and that is how you call the nurse. Okay. So for home use, those things are not available, but it is definitely used in a hospital setting. So let me show you on mouse 1 versus mouse 2. You can make the pictures look different. There's a couple of different concepts here. You can change the slope, and basically what this is a graph is horizontally is the stick position, and vertically is how fast is the cursor going to move. So I can go from slow to fast in my slope, and then I can also go. I can change the slope. This one here is for changing the slope. Make it very linear, or make it much more exponential. And then I can change my speed as to what my fastest speed is. Then over here, where it says absolute movement, let me show you, and deadband, okay? So the deadband is really important. If you're trying to draw things, a deadband means that when you move your stick, let me put the cursor down here. See how far out I have to be before the cursor actually moves? So if I go back to mouse 1, and I take that 9 and put it back down to a 2, and hit apply, Then I'll show you in that stick mode again where that looks like is. I don't need to be as far to move it. Now I can also show you, and I often do this, well, we can do it here. Let's take and make the absolute movement, let's just make it 11. And then show you what it does. So the first little bit, see how the stick moves and then comes back? So the first 11 counts the stick, the cursor is following the stick, and then beyond that it goes, and it allows you to have a very intimate little area right there. And then if you want to move that little intimate area, you can do it there. Now typically what we do is we set it up to a fairly high number. Set it up to 99 and you'll have a large area. And the intention of that was for doing like paintbrush, where you wanted to do a lot of work in one area, like fixing a photo or you know, something on that nature. So I'm going to change this back again. I'm going to put the absolute movement down to 0 and the deadband at 2, and then I'm going to take mouse 2 and just make mouse 2 slow, and I'm going to actually put this back to 0. Deadband 0, it doesn't really matter. So let me show you on mouse 1 versus mouse 2. You can make the pictures look different. There's a couple of different concepts here. You can change the slope, and basically what this is, a graph is horizontally is the stick position, and vertically is how fast is the cursor going to move. So I can go from, you know, slow to fast in my slope, and then I can also go. I can change the slope. This one here is for changing the slope. Make it very linear, or make it much more exponential, and then I can change my speed as to what my fastest speed is. Then over here, where it says absolute movement, let me show you, and deadband, okay? So the deadband is really important. You know, if you're trying to draw things, a deadband means that when you move your stick, let me put the cursor down here. See how far out I have to be before the cursor actually moves? So if I go back to mouse 1, and I take that 9 and put it back down to a 2, and hit apply, then I'll show you in that stick mode again where that looks like is. I don't need to be as far to move it. Now I can also show you, and I often do this, well, we can do it here. Let's take and make the absolute movement, let's just make it 11. And then show you what it does. So the first little bit, see how the stick moves and then comes back? So the first 11 counts the stick, the cursor is following the stick, and then beyond that it goes, and it allows you to have a very intimate little area right there. And then if you want to move that little intimate area, you can do it there. Now typically what we do is we set it up to a fairly high number. Set it up to 99 and you'll have a large area. And the intention of that was for doing like paintbrush, where you wanted to do a lot of work in one area, like fixing a photo or you know, something on that nature. So I'm going to change this back again. I'm going to put the absolute movement down to 0 and the deadband at 2, and then I'm going to take mouse 2 and just make mouse 2 slow, and I'm going to actually put this back to 0. Deadband 0, it doesn't really matter. And what we'll do is we'll show you how we could let's use G4. Let's take G4 and cause it to switch to mode 2. And here's a neat trick, okay? So now that we're in mode 2, if we wanted G4 in mode 2 to switch it back to G1, we'd go down here to mouse 2, G4, and we would pick our mode as mouse 1. Okay, so now, and what will happen is, and I'll show you this light up here, the little green light, if that's in mouse 2 mode, which I made a slow sip. Notice it's red now up here. Now I'm in mouse 2. So you notice that if I move my stick, you see how slow the cursor moves? Because I set it to go slow. Okay. If I do that slow puff or slow sip again, it went back to green. It allowed it to toggle. Now watch my cursor. See how much faster it moves? Okay, so just the same movement of the stick moves the cursor a lot faster. It's because I programmed mouse 1 to be different than mouse 2, which may be different applications, and it allows you to switch back and forth depending upon what you're trying to do. So there's a lot of different actions, and when you look over here, you know what's involved in a mode. Well, drive mode is actually going to become smart TV mode, and it'll allow you to move your stick to jump between program blocks on your TV. And I believe we're also going to do a game mode, you know, where people play games with ASDF, that we can then program those characters in, and you move your stick and those characters will be, you know, sent out. So there's joystick mode. Doesn't work on all computers. We're not really pushing it, but it does work on some. If you want to try it, we can easily give you a 30-day trial code, and you can see if it works on your machine, you know, before you buy anything. There's that scroll mode I talked about that changes the type of scroll you're having. So if I go to the next tab, and you can just, you know, look at these at home. Bluetooth 1, Bluetooth 2. Actually, only Bluetooth 1 works right now. We're working toward being able to have your mouse pre-paired with 2 different phones and then switch between them. Bluetooth aux only works if you have the command and control unit, and then USB is the normal USB off the mouse. USB only works if you have the command and control unit. So, but under the mouse commands, these are the standard, you know, button, you know, left, right, center, 4, 5, and the mouse wheel. And I've demonstrated the wheel, and you know, so it can actually send mouse buttons that most people don't have. If you have a drawing program and you can assign those buttons, it's a nice feature. You can make use of these things. Keyboard, you can send any. These are all the human interface device standard, you know, key commands that you can send. You can see there's a lot of them. You can pick through whatever you want. Same thing with joystick. These are all the standard joystick commands you can send. And so if you can make the joystick work, you know, it plays, you know, real live Microsoft joystick games. Control, same type of thing, you know, like, you know, the Control Alt Delete, you know, all of those type things. And once again, I can scroll through here and you can see, like, man, there's a lot of different options, and you can actually, when you do this, see where it says mouse 1 mode. You can actually, well, if you don't like it, you have to hit the backup arrow, okay? So I'm going to hit the backup arrow and erase that, and then I'm going to put, I'm going to just put a target in there. I don't see where are we. Let's put Bluetooth. Let's put Bluetooth 1 in, okay? And this is for mouse 2. Oh yeah, that's right. So now what's happened is it's not going to. But well, here's what I wanted to show you. You can also add a mode. You could say, gee, I want Bluetooth 1 joystick mode. Now, I don't think you can make that work, but it allows you to. You could also go like, oh, let's add this control function in here, this one here, whatever, and hit apply. So now when I'm in mouse 2 mode, which I have to do a slow puff to get the mouse 2. Oh, puff, excuse me, not sip, not puff. Now I'm in mouse 2. So a minute ago when I sipped again, I went back to mouse 1. Well, now it's going to switch, and you'll watch down here, it'll go to Bluetooth 1. See, it's in Bluetooth 1. It also sent those other commands which had no meaning to, because we didn't really connect to anything. But that just gives you an idea of just how flexible. Now I'm stuck in Bluetooth too, and I destroyed my mechanism for fixing it. And I think, let me just go back up here and take a look. Yeah, I see joystick related actions only will work with the joystick feature. There it's telling you that I programmed something stupid. So here the self edge is programmed to be 0 stick and pressure. I'm going to change it. I'm going to back this up, and I'm going to change it to an external command called reset. So right there is reset, and hit apply. So I remember in the startup commands I showed you how it would start up and it would default as USB mouse 1 or USB mouse 1, and that this should go green. So I'm going to push this down to go to get the green light, let it go white, let go. And you notice now that this is it now connected back with my computer on USB 1, and this is back to green. Now something I need to warn you about here, when you do a reset like that, if I let this go and notice it did a reset by itself, and now if you watch my cursor, see my cursor is just drifting terribly. See, it's just every time I bring it down, it goes back up. And that's because when I did this reset, when the white light goes on, you must let go of the stick so that it actually, see there, it's not drifting. So that it actually gets to the 0 so that it can 0 set, because it automatically re-zeros. So the only other thing I could do, and your maintenance tab won't even come up, you have to know the code to bring it up, but it allows you to, you don't want to play with factory initialize and clear, these will mess you up, but it does allow you to update like the firmware. But we've automated that for the home users, so the only other actions I could, like I said, we have external actions. I showed you my blue button, and I showed you how I could program an external action. You really can't, especially if you go back to tab 1 and you go like, okay, it came from the factory. Can I export a setting? Can I call that a setting factory? And I'm typing on a keyboard that you can't see, but I could call it that and just save it. And of course, it's going to save it to firmware QuadJoy, and just save something called fact. And of course, if I wanted to import it back again, it's going to see there it is, fact.quadjoy. Okay. So if I had saved my settings before I played with them, I could always get it back to where it was, which means it doesn't hurt to play with things, because you can always get back to where it works. And if that don't work, you can always call us. We can actually reach into your computer remotely. In fact, there's an option under support on our QuadJoy website that allows you to load up TeamViewer, and then because you're one of our TeamViewer clients, we see you. If you allow us in, we can take control of your computer. So at this point, I think we've covered the highlights of your QuadJoy mouse, how you can use mouse 1, mouse 2, how you can configure puff and sip and the different timers, how you can configure your range of motion, your stick, your startup features, and how you configure all the actions to the gestures. So that at this point concludes today's video. Thank you.